Captain Elias Kale sat alone in his quarters on the orbital research station Horizon Arc. The faint hum of the ship's life support was the only sound that kept him company. Outside the wide observation window, stars stretched endlessly, each tiny spark a reminder of how small humanity was in the great canvas of the galaxy. Elias leaned back in his chair, eyes red from hours of reviewing reports. His job was supposed to be simple: oversee research projects, ensure the safety of the crew, and maintain order on a station that most of the galaxy hardly even noticed. Yet responsibility often felt heavier than the vacuum beyond those walls. Tonight, the station was quiet. Too quiet. The research teams had gone to rest, the corridors dimmed for night cycle, and even the chatter on the comms had settled into silence. Elias rubbed his temples. He thought about his family back on Earth, the friends he hadn't spoken to in months, and the endless duties that weighed on his shoulders. He wished for something different, something to remind him that life out here wasn't just about endless logs and protocols. He did not expect his wish to be answered. Without warning, the lights in his room flickered. At first, Elias thought it was just a minor power fluctuation. That happened sometimes, especially in the outer sectors of the station where the systems were aging. But then, he noticed the air shimmer. It was as if reality itself rippled, bending light the way heat does on a desert horizon. Before he could call security or reach for the emergency alarm, the shimmer solidified. A figure stepped out of nothingness and into his quarters. Elias froze. It was a woman. She was tall, her frame slender but strong, and she wore garments unlike anything he had ever seen. They looked metallic, like a suit of living armor shifting with faint blue light. Strange runes glowed faintly along the edges of the suit, symbols he could not recognize. She carried no weapon that he could see, but her presence was commanding, almost otherworldly. Elias opened his mouth to speak, but words caught in his throat. How had she bypassed the security system? There had been no sound of the airlock, no sign of intrusion. She had simply appeared. Then, without hesitation, the woman reached up, touched her chest plate, and the armor began to peel away. Piece by piece, it detached and fell with soft metallic clinks onto the floor. In seconds, the strange suit lay at her feet like discarded shells. Elias's heart pounded. He realized what she had done. She had dropped her protective suit. But underneath was not weakness. Her body glowed faintly. Across her skin were bioluminescent patterns flowing like rivers of light. They pulsed with gentle rhythms, almost like a heartbeat, shifting in colors of soft blue and silver. Her eyes held the same glow, piercing but calm. She looked human in form, but everything about her told Elias she was not. And then she smiled. It wasn't a hostile smile. It wasn't mocking. It was warm, gentle, almost as if she had been searching for him specifically and was relieved to finally find him. Elias stood from his chair, trying to mask the unease that knotted in his stomach. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady, but low. The woman tilted her head as if studying him carefully. Her lips parted, and she spoke in a voice that was melodic, yet strained, like someone learning how to use unfamiliar words. Elias, she said. Hearing his name sent a chill down his spine. How did she know it? "You know me?" Elias asked cautiously, his hand moving slowly toward the comms panel on his desk. Her smile widened slightly, but her eyes softened. "Yes." She pointed at him, then touched her own chest. "Lyra." That was the name she gave. Lyra. Elias hesitated. She knew his name, but he had never heard of her. He studied the strange patterns glowing on her body, trying to decide whether she was a threat or not. She didn't seem hostile, but appearances could deceive. "How did you get in here?" he demanded. "This is a secure station. No one can just walk into my room." Lyra shook her head slowly, her glowing hair shifting like threads of silver in the dim light. "Not walk," she said, her words halting. She raised her hand, and the air rippled again, A faint distortion just as before. Cross. She could cross space, that was what she meant. She hadn't used the airlocks or the docking bays. She had simply stepped across some kind of unseen barrier. Elias's hand hovered over the comm switch, but something in his instincts told him not to press it, not yet. The way she stood, calm, unarmed, and the way her glowing markings pulsed softly, it didn't feel like an attack. It felt like a plea. "You shouldn't be here," Elias said finally, his voice firmer. "You're trespassing on a human station. I should call security." Lyra stepped forward, her movements graceful, deliberate. She lifted her hands slowly, palms open, showing she meant no harm. "No," she said softly. "Safe. Here. With you." Elias's chest tightened. With him? Why him, out of all the people on the station? He was just a captain overseeing operations, not someone of galactic importance. Her smile returned, and again it carried that strange familiarity. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Elias studied her carefully, trying to read the truth in her expression. She did not look like a soldier. She did not look like a spy. If anything, she looked like someone running from something far greater than either of them. Finally, Elias lowered his hand from the comms panel. "All right, Lyra," he said slowly. "You've got my attention. Now tell me, why are you here?" Her eyes glowed brighter, and the markings on her skin pulsed in response. She placed a hand gently on his desk, and in that moment, Elias felt a faint vibration through the metal surface. It was as if her very being carried energy. She struggled with her words, but he could feel the weight of her message. "Running," she said. "Hunted. Need. Humans." "Hunted?" Elias repeated, his brow furrowing. Lyra nodded slowly. "Danger. Coming. For me. For you." A chill ran through him. Whoever she was, whatever she had escaped from, it was now connected to him and to the station. Elias stepped back, his mind racing. He should report this immediately. Protocol demanded it. But something deeper told him to listen first. The galaxy was filled with unknowns, and sometimes the right choice was not the one written in manuals. Lyra stood there quietly, her glowing patterns dimming slightly, as if she sensed his hesitation. And then she spoke again, her voice softer, but clear. "You help me. I help you." Elias looked at her glowing eyes, her calm smile, and the armor lying at her feet. Whoever she was, she had risked everything to appear here, in his quarters, unarmed and vulnerable. That meant trust, or desperation, perhaps both. And though every instinct told him this could bring danger to the Horizon Ark, Elias found himself saying the words that would change his life and humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "All right, Lyra, I'll listen." The hum of the station continued in the background, but for Elias everything had changed. He didn't know it yet, but this single encounter, the night a strange woman walked into his room, dropped her armor and smiled, would ignite a chain of events that would test not only him, but the future of all humankind. The night on Horizon Ark stretched longer than usual for Captain Elias Kale. Sleep was far from his mind after Lyra's sudden arrival. Her presence inside his quarters felt like a turning point. He could not forget her glowing patterns, the strange shimmer she stepped through, and the way she spoke his name as though she had known him all along. Now she stood quietly, watching him with those shining eyes. The pieces of her metallic suit lay scattered across the floor like broken shells. The faint pulse of her glowing skin filled the room with a soft light, brighter than the desk lamp Elias had been using. Elias leaned against the edge of his desk, arms crossed. "You said you were hunted. By who?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his mind was racing with possibilities. Lyra's head tilted slightly, her expression shifting as she searched for words. She spoke slowly, carefully, piecing sentences together. "Keth, Dominion," she said at last. "They destroy, conquer, take all." Elias frowned. He had heard whispers of the Keth Dominion in passing reports from deep space scouts. They were not often discussed in human space because they lived far beyond humanity's explored borders. Still, their reputation was troubling. Stories of planets stripped bare, civilizations forced into servitude, and fleets that moved like storms. Many in human command circles dismissed those accounts as exaggerated. But Lyra's voice carried no exaggeration. It carried fear. "The Keth," Elias repeated quietly. "And they're after you?" Lyra nodded. "I escaped. Prison. They want me back. Alive." Elias straightened. If her words were true, then Horizon Ark was now in danger simply because she had come here. "Why us?" he asked, his tone sharper. "Why come to a human station? You could have gone anywhere." For the first time, Lyra's smile faded, replaced by something more serious. She walked closer, her glowing markings dimming slightly as though she was trying to be less overwhelming. "Because humans matter," she said slowly. "You do, not see? But future depends on you." Elias blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Future depends on us?" Lyra nodded again. "Long ago, my people watched stars. We saw patterns, saw paths. Humans rise, strong, even against Keth. The idea sounded impossible. Humanity was young compared to other civilizations. They had only just begun to expand into neighboring systems. The great empires of the galaxy, like the Keth, saw humans as nothing, more than newcomers, insignificant in the grand scale. And yet here stood Lyra, speaking as if humans were destined for something greater. Elias wanted to believe her, but skepticism tugged at him. "You expect me to believe humans are the answer to stopping an empire that's been around for centuries?" Lyra's eyes softened. "Not stop alone," she said gently. "But you are spark. Fire starts with spark." Her words lingered in the air. Elias felt torn. On one side, there was duty. He should call the Security Council immediately, inform command, and place Lyra into custody until proper authorities could decide what to do. On the other side, there was instinct, the feeling that Lyra's presence was not chance but something important, something that could not be ignored. As if sensing his hesitation, Lyra took a step closer. She raised her hand, palm outward, asking silently for trust. Elias hesitated, then slowly extended his hand toward hers. When their palms met, a surge of warmth traveled through his skin, not painful, not frightening, but steady, alive. He pulled his hand back quickly, startled. "What was that?" Lyra lowered her hand. "Energy," she said softly. "My people are light inside. We live with energy. Armor hides it, keeps Keth from tracking. But now, no armor." Elias's eyes flicked to the metallic pieces on the floor. "So without that shell they can find you?" Lyra nodded once. "Yes, they will search. Already close." Elias exhaled sharply. His mind spun with the weight of her words. If the Keth were indeed close, then Horizon Ark was in grave danger. The station was a research hub, not a warship. It carried scientists, engineers, and explorers, not soldiers. If hostile ships appeared, they would have little chance of survival. "UA should have gone somewhere else," Elias said at last, frustration edging into his voice. "Somewhere far from people. If they're after you, then you've just put everyone on this station at risk." Lyra lowered her gaze, her glow dimming further. For the first time, Elias saw sadness on her face. "Nowhere else safe," she said quietly. "I trust you." The word struck him like a blade, not in anger but in weight. She had trusted him, chosen him, without even knowing him fully. He didn't understand why, but her voice carried sincerity. Elias rubbed his forehead, pacing across the room. He needed answers, but her broken sentences made the story hard to piece together. Still, one thing was certain. The Keth Dominion was real, and they were coming. The intercom on his desk buzzed suddenly, making him jump. He quickly pressed the receiver. "Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Mira Dorn, the station's security officer. "Sensors just picked up an unusual energy fluctuation near your section. Everything all right down there?" Elias's eyes darted to Lyra, who watched him silently. He pressed the button, keeping his voice calm. "Everything's fine, Lieutenant. Probably just another system hiccup. I'll file a report later." "Understood, sir," Mira replied. The intercom clicked off. Elias exhaled slowly. He had just lied to his own officer. That was not something he ever did. Yet the thought of revealing Lyra now before he understood her fully felt wrong. He turned back to her. "Listen," he said firmly. "If I'm going to help you, I need the full truth. No half answers. Why are the Keth so desperate to capture you?" Lyra's expression grew heavy. She sat on the edge of his bunk, the glow of her patterns flickering, faintly like fading stars. For a long moment she did not speak. Then finally her voice came low and quiet. "Because I hold secret," she said. "A secret that can break them." Elias's chest tightened. What kind of secret? Lyra met his gaze, her glowing eyes steady. "Hope," she said simply. Those words lingered in the room, stronger than any weapon. Elias wanted to press further, but before he could, the station lights flickered again. The hum of the life support system wavered. Elias felt his stomach sink. Something was wrong. Lyra stood quickly, her glow brightening. She turned toward the window, her eyes narrowing as if she could sense something beyond the stars. "What is it?" Elias asked, tension rising in his voice. She spoke in a tone that carried both fear and certainty. "They are here." Elias rushed to the window, his eyes scanning the endless dark. At first he saw nothing. But then, a faint shadow moved among the stars. A shape too steady to be an asteroid, too sharp to be natural. And then another. His comms panel lit up with urgent signals from the command deck. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Captain Kale, unknown vessels just dropped out of warp at the system's edge. They're not broadcasting any identification. Orders?" Elias's hand trembled as he reached for the receiver. He glanced, once at Lyra, whose glow pulsed like a warning beacon. The Keth had found her, and now they had found Horizon Arc. The alarms of Horizon Arc echoed through every corridor. Red lights washed over the walls as the deep warning sirens pulsed. Crew members rushed through narrow passageways, pulling on gear, strapping themselves to consoles, and trying to make sense of the sudden danger. Captain Elias Kale ran from his quarters to the command deck, Lyra following silently behind him. She wore no armor now, only the glowing markings of her strange body. To every crew member who caught sight of her, she looked like a living mystery. But there was no time to question. The station was under threat. The command deck was chaos. Officers shouted across the room, data screens flickered with updates, and the massive star map in the center displayed dark shapes at the system's edge. Lieutenant Mira Dorn turned sharply as Elias entered. "Captain, 4 vessels have entered the system. They're large, bigger than anything we've seen this close to human space. They're not sending signals, not responding to hails." Elias stared at the display. The ships looked like shadows with sharp angles, moving with predatory patience. He had no doubt who they belonged to. "The Keth," Elias muttered. Mira frowned. "You know who they are?" Before Elias could respond, Lyra stepped forward, her glow brightening against the red emergency lights. Every officer turned in stunned silence as she spoke, her words heavy with warning. "Keth Dominion," she said clearly. "They come for me. If you give, they leave. If you fight, they burn." The room fell silent. No one knew who this glowing stranger was, yet her words carried the weight of truth. Mira's hand moved to her sidearm, but Elias raised his hand quickly. "Stand down," he ordered. His eyes swept across the crew. "She's not our enemy. She's under my protection." There were murmurs of confusion, but Elias didn't give them time to argue. He turned back to the map. The Keth ships were still distant but closing fast. Options? He demanded. Lieutenant Harris, the tactical officer, spoke quickly. Captain, we're not armed for this. Horizon Arc is a research station. We have defense drones, but they'd last minutes against warships that size. What about the asteroid field nearby? Elias asked. Harris nodded. Sector 9. Dense rock clusters, electromagnetic interference. If we move into it, we might mask our signature for a while. Do it, Elias ordered. The engines roared as the station's thrusters pushed the massive structure toward the asteroid field. Scientists and engineers clung to rails as the sudden shift rattled the decks. The stars outside tilted, and the rocky shapes of the asteroid belt grew larger on the screens, but the Keth followed. Lyra gripped the railing beside Elias. Her glowing eyes watched the display, and her expression darkened. They will not stop, she whispered. Keth never stop. Elias clenched his jaw. Then we'll make them work for it. The asteroid field was a maze of tumbling rock. Some pieces were as small as shuttles, others as large as mountains. The station threaded its way through the chaos, its external thrusters firing bursts of flame to steer away from collisions. On the command deck, tension grew with every passing second. The Keth ships moved into the field as well, slower but steady, like wolves following prey into the forest. They're scanning, Harris reported. Trying to track us. Elias looked at Lyra. Can they find you? Without your armor? Lyra's glow dimmed slightly as she lowered her head. Yes, she said. They sense energy. My kind, hard to hide. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear now. Her presence had drawn the hunters straight to them. Then we need to outsmart them, Elias said firmly. He tapped the console. Shut down all non-essential power systems. Cut the station's signature as low as possible. The lights across the decks dimmed, leaving only emergency glows. Engines quieted, research equipment powered down, and the hum of the station grew faint. Horizon Arc drifted silently among the rocks. For a moment, the tension eased. They've slowed their advance, Harris reported. We might have bought ourselves some time. But Lyra shook her head. Her markings pulsed uneasily. Not enough. They always find. Hours dragged by like years. The crew whispered among themselves, some fearful, others angry. Rumors spread quickly about the glowing woman on the command deck, the stranger who had brought death to their doorstep. Mira approached Elias quietly when Lyra was distracted. Captain, she said in a low voice, with respect, the station can't survive this. If they want her, maybe we should consider. Elias cut her off sharply. We don't hand people over to tyrants, not on my watch. Mira's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue further. She had served with Elias long enough to know when his mind was set. Still, the doubt in her eyes lingered. Lyra, as if sensing the conversation, looked at Elias and spoke softly. You risk all for me. Elias met her glowing gaze. You came here for a reason. I don't know why yet, but I'll find out. Until then, you're under my protection. That's what humanity does. We don't abandon those who ask for help. Her lips curved into that familiar, gentle smile. For a moment, the fear of the situation faded. Then the silence broke. Captain, Harris shouted suddenly. They've locked onto us. All 4 ships are converging. The map lit up with sharp, red symbols as the Keth began moving in. Thrusters to full power, Elias ordered. The station lurched violently as it tried to pull deeper into the asteroid field. Massive rocks tumbled past, some scraping dangerously close to the station's hull. On the outer cameras, the Keth ships appeared, dark leviathans of metal, their hulls glowing with strange crimson patterns. They moved with terrifying grace, their size dwarfing the asteroids around them. They're charging weapons, Harris reported, voice tight. Elias's knuckles whitened as he gripped the command chair. Evasive maneuvers. Keep us moving. Don't let them get a clear shot. The station dodged through narrow gaps between asteroids, its thrusters firing desperately. Explosions of rock erupted behind them as the Keth fired bursts of energy, shattering asteroids to dust. Each blast shook Horizon Arc like thunder. Sparks rained down from overhead panels. Officers shouted, trying to keep systems online. "We can't keep this up, Captain," Mira yelled. "They'll corner us eventually." Elias knew she was right. The Keth were relentless and the station was not built for combat. Every second was a borrowed miracle. But then, Lyra stepped forward. Her glow brightened, her markings shining like rivers of starlight. She placed her hands on the central console and the screens flickered with sudden bursts of energy. "What are you doing?" Elias demanded. Her voice was steady now, stronger than before. "Helping. I know. Their ways. I can guide you." She tapped into the systems, her glow feeding directly into the station's sensors. The displays sharpened, showing weak points. In the asteroid field, blind spots in the Keth scanning grid. "Here," she said, pointing. "Turn here. Hide there. They cannot see all." Elias hesitated only a moment before giving the order. "Follow her directions." The crew obeyed. To their astonishment, Lyra's guidance worked. The station slipped through hidden paths among the rocks, avoiding blasts that would have torn them apart. The Keth fired again and again, but Horizon Arc remained just beyond reach. For the first time, hope stirred in the hearts of the crew. After hours of pursuit, the Keth slowed their assault. Their ships circled the asteroid field like predators waiting for prey to tire. On the command deck, exhaustion weighed heavy, but spirits rose slightly. They had survived the first hunt. Elias turned to Lyra. She was pale now, her glow dimmer, as if helping the station had drained her strength, yet she still smiled faintly when she met his eyes. "You saved us," Elias said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "Not yet, they returned stronger." Elias knew she was right. The Keth would not give up. They had tasted the chase, and they would return until they caught what they sought. But for now, humanity had endured. And in that survival, something new was born. A bond between Elias, his crew, and the mysterious woman who had walked into his room, dropped her armor and smiled. It was only the beginning. The asteroid field was silent now. The great rocks drifted slowly, spinning in the endless dark, their jagged edges reflecting faint starlight. Deep within that maze of stone and shadow, the research station Horizon Arc floated in hiding. Its engines quiet, its lights dimmed to a faint glow. But peace was an illusion. Beyond the rocks, the Keth ship still waited. 4 massive predators surrounded the field, patient and unyielding. They did not attack again. Not yet. They did not need to. They knew their prey was trapped inside. On the command deck, tension weighed heavily on the crew. Many of them had not slept in nearly a full day. Their faces were pale, their eyes tired, but their voices remained sharp as they whispered among themselves. "Captain," Lieutenant Mira Dorn said at last, breaking the silence. "We can't hide forever. Supplies won't last. And if we try to break out, they'll cut us down. There's only one option." Elias Kale turned slowly in his command chair. "And what option is that, Lieutenant?" Her eyes flicked to Lyra, who stood quietly near the console, her glow faint but steady. "We hand her over." The words fell like stones in the room. Several officers nodded grimly, while others looked away, ashamed but unwilling to argue. Elias's jaw tightened. He had known this moment would come, but hearing it spoken aloud still made his chest heavy. "We don't surrender people to tyrants," Elias said firmly. His voice carried a finality that silenced some of the whispers. But Mira did not back down. "Sir, with respect, this isn't about morals. It's about survival. One life for hundreds. If she stays here, everyone on this station dies." The crew's eyes turned to Elias, waiting for his answer. He could feel their fear pressing against him, heavier than any order he had ever given. Before he could reply, Lyra spoke softly. "She is right." Every head turned toward her. Her glowing patterns pulsed weakly, but her voice was calm. "Keth want me, not you. If I go, they leave. You live." Elias rose from his chair, anger flashing in his eyes. "No," he said sharply. Don't you dare make that choice for us. Lyra's gaze met his. I already did, when I came here. The room was silent again. Elias looked at her glowing eyes and saw not fear, but sadness. A sadness born from carrying a burden too great for one being to bear. He shook his head, refusing to accept it. There has to be another way. Later, in the quiet of the strategy room, Elias met with his senior officers. Holographic maps of the station flickered above the table alongside projections of the Keth ships circling outside. We can't outrun them, Harris, the tactical officer, explained. Their ships are faster, stronger, they'll chase us down. And we can't outfight them with what we have, Mira added. The drones, the turrets, the shields, they're nothing compared to those monsters. Elias leaned on the table, his hands gripping the edge. What about the prototype? He asked suddenly. The room fell silent. The prototype? Harris repeated, his eyes widening. You mean the rail cannon project? Captain, that's unfinished. It's never been tested. It could tear the station apart if we try to fire it. It's still an option, Elias said. The Keth don't expect us to fight back. If we hit them hard even once, it might be enough to break through their blockade. Mira shook her head. Sir, even if the weapon works, it doesn't solve the problem. They'll just send more ships. They'll never stop hunting as long as she's here. Elias looked at the glowing figure in the corner of the room. Lyra had followed silently, listening without interruption. Now she stepped forward. You are right, she said softly. Keth will return, again and again, but one victory changes everything. If humans fight back and win, others will see. Others will believe. Her words settled over the room like a quiet flame. Harris frowned. Mira crossed her arms, but Elias understood. This was not about a single battle. It was about proving humanity could stand it all. He looked at his officers. We have a choice. Surrender Lyra and buy ourselves a few more days of safety or take a stand. If we win even once, humanity proves we're not prey. That's a choice only we can make. The council debated through the night. Voices clashed. Fear against courage. Survival against honor. Some argued that risking the lives of the crew was madness. Others insisted that surrendering Lyra would be the beginning of slavery for all humanity. Elias listened, his face calm, but his heart burning. At last, he stood, and the voices fell silent. This station, he said slowly, was built for research, not war. But we are more than scientists, we are human. And humanity does not bow to those who hunt us. Not today, not ever. We fight. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, one by one, heads began to nod. Harris placed his hands on the table, determination in his eyes. Mira exhaled sharply, then gave a reluctant nod. Even those who had argued most fiercely for surrender found themselves swayed by Elias's conviction. The choice was made. Humanity would fight. Preparation began immediately. Engineers raced to the lower decks where the unfinished rail cannon lay dormant. Massive coils and conduits lined the chamber, half complete, coated in dust from years of neglect. Now teams of welders and mechanics worked feverishly, connecting circuits, sealing power lines, and calibrating targeting systems. The weapon was simple in theory, a magnetic accelerator designed to launch solid projectiles at near light speed. A single strike could pierce the hull of even the strongest warship, but it required enormous amounts of power, far more than the station's generators could safely provide. That was where Lyra came in. She stood in the center of the chamber, her glowing patterns pulsing brighter as engineers connected conduits to a central core. Elias watched as she placed her hands on the device, her energy flowing into the systems. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and the rail cannon hummed to life for the first time. Her face was calm, but sweat beaded on her brow. I can give you power, she whispered, but it will cost. Elias stepped closer. What cost? Lyra looked at him with steady eyes. It may burn me, empty, but it is worth it. If you win, humans have future. Elias's chest tightened, He wanted to stop her, to protect her from such a sacrifice. But he knew there was no other way. "We'll make sure your sacrifice means something," he said quietly. She smiled again, that same warm smile that had greeted him the night she appeared in his room. "Then I am ready." The station trembled as the rail cannon powered up. Energy surged through the coils, vibrating the metal floor. The hum grew louder, a deep thrum that echoed across the decks. Crew members clutched their stations, eyes wide with awe and fear. On the tactical display, the Keth ships began to move. They had sensed the surge of power. Their predators' patience had ended. "They're closing in," Harris shouted. "All 4 ships on intercept course." Elias stood tall, his voice steady. "Hold position. Wait for them to come into range." The crew obeyed, though their hearts raced. The Keth ships grew larger on the screens, their crimson patterns glowing, like fire. Lyra's glow was blinding now, her entire body shining with pure energy. She winced with the strain, but did not falter. "Ready?" she said through clenched teeth. "Target the lead ship," Elias ordered. "On my mark." The rail cannon charged, the coils screaming with raw power. The air crackled with static, and lights across the station flickered dangerously. The Keth fired first. Beams of searing energy cut through the asteroid field, striking rocks and shattering them into clouds of dust. The station shook as near misses scraped its shields. "Now!" Elias roared. The rail cannon unleashed its fury. A blinding streak of light shot across the void faster than the eye could follow. It struck the lead Keth ship dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ship tore apart in a violent explosion, its hull splitting open, flames spilling into the darkness of space. The crew erupted in cheers, the sound breaking the fear that had gripped them for so long. For the first time in history, humanity had struck down a Keth warship. But the victory was only beginning. The remaining 3 ships roared forward, their weapons blazing. The station trembled under the assault, its shields straining, its hull groaning. Elias gripped the rail. "Again!" Lyra cried out, her glow flickering as she poured more of herself into the weapon. The coils screamed once more, and another shot launched into the void. A second Keth ship erupted into flames, debris scattering across the stars, but Lyra staggered, her knees buckling. Elias rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed. Her voice was faint. "One more. I can do one more." Elias looked at her pale face, at the pain in her glowing eyes, and for a moment he wanted to stop. But the crew's lives, humanity's future, all balanced on this moment. He nodded, his voice low. "Then let's finish it." The rail cannon charged. One last time. Lyra screamed as her light blazed brighter than ever, flooding the chamber with brilliance. The weapon fired, and a third Keth ship exploded into dust. The 4th ship hesitated. For the first time, the hunters seemed uncertain. Then, slowly, it turned and fled into the darkness of space. The battle was over. Humanity had won. The crew cheered wildly, some crying, some laughing, all overwhelmed by the impossible victory. Elias held Lyra in his arms as her glow dimmed, her strength spent. She smiled faintly, whispering words only he could hear. "See? Spark became fire." Then her eyes closed, and she slipped into silence. Elias held her close, his heart heavy, but proud. They had made their choice, and it had changed everything. The battle over the asteroid field had ended, but the Horizon arc still trembled from the force of the attacks. Debris from shattered Keth ships floated in slow arcs outside the observation windows, shimmering in the distant starlight. The station's hull bore scratches and dents, but it had survived. For now, humanity had a reason to breathe, to hope. Captain Elias Kyle walked carefully through the corridors, his boots echoing softly against the metal floors. The station was quiet now, but the silence was fragile, tense with the memory of the chaos that had just passed. He paused outside the rail cannon chamber where Lyra lay on a support bench. Her glow had dimmed almost completely, leaving only faint pulses along her bioluminescent markings. Her breathing was shallow but steady. For hours, She had poured her energy into the weapon, guiding humanity to its first victory against the Keth Dominion. Elias knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. "You saved the station. You saved us." Lyra's eyes fluttered open slowly. She smiled faintly, that same gentle smile that had greeted him the night she appeared in his quarters. "Yes, saved," she whispered. Her voice was weak but filled with relief. "But not me. Weak now." Elias shook his head. "No, you're still here. You're alive. And that matters more than anything." For the first time, the weight of what they had accomplished began to settle in. The crew, exhausted but elated, had managed the impossible. They had fought back against an enemy that had seemed unstoppable, and now they had a future to protect. Down in the command deck, the officers were busy assessing damage, coordinating repairs, and checking for survivors in the station's outer modules. The excitement of victory was tempered by the awareness that the Keth were still out there, somewhere in the dark expanse of space. Their retreat was temporary. They would return. But Elias did not dwell on that yet. He focused on the moment, the fragile spark of life that represented hope. He helped Lyra sit up, supporting her as she struggled to remain steady. "You risked everything," he said, his voice soft. "Not just for me, not just for the crew, but for humanity." Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly. "I knew. Humans can fight, can rise. Spark can be fire." Elias smiled at the phrase. "Then let's make sure this fire burns bright, together." The following hours were spent in recovery. Engineers worked to repair the station's engines, shields, and damaged modules. Medical teams tended to injured crew members, both human and Lyra, whose alien physiology required careful monitoring. Lyra rested in a special chamber designed to stabilize her energy, connected to delicate instruments that measured her bioluminescent patterns. Even in a weakened state, her glow remained a steady reminder of what had been accomplished. Elias stayed by her side, watching as her chest rose and fell, her breathing calm but fragile. He thought of the moment she had first appeared in his quarters, shedding her armor and smiling at him as if she had known him forever. That smile had started everything: the journey, the battle, and humanity's first victory against an empire that had never known defeat. Outside the observation, Windows debris from the destroyed Keth ships drifted silently. Each fragment seemed to shine like a reminder that even the smallest spark could ignite great change. Elias watched the stars and reflected on the meaning of their victory. Humanity had fought against impossible odds and survived. They had faced a force that had once seemed unbeatable and had shown courage, ingenuity, and unity. For the first time, he felt a deep sense of pride, not just in himself, but in humanity. They were more than a young species. They were survivors, innovators, and fighters. They had chosen hope over fear, courage over surrender, and in doing so, they had proven their place in the galaxy. Lyra stirred beside him, opening her eyes again. "Horizon Arc, safe," she said softly. "Yes," Elias replied, "safe for now, and stronger because of you." Her smile returned, gentle and warm, carrying a sense of peace and trust that touched everyone who saw it. It was more than a smile. It was a promise, a symbol that even in the darkest moments hope could prevail. In the following days, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the station and prepare for future threats. The Keth Dominion would return, that much was certain, but humanity now had proof that they could stand against an empire. The victory against the Keth became more than a battle. It became a story, a legend that would spread across human space. Stories of courage, of unity, and of a mysterious being who had chosen humanity as the spark to ignite a fire of resistance. Elias continued to spend time with Lyra, learning more about her people and the secrets she carried. She spoke of civilizations lost to the Keth, of technologies that could change the balance of power, and of her people's hope that humanity could survive where others had failed. He realized that the fight was far from over, but the knowledge that they could win gave him strength. Humanity had chosen its path, and with allies like Lyra, they had a chance to face the galaxy boldly. One evening, Elias stood alone in the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly, and the station hummed softly as repairs continued in the background. Lyra entered quietly, her glow dim but steady. She walked toward him, shedding any remaining uncertainty. "You look at stars," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of hope. "I do," Elias replied, "and I think of what's out there and what we can do." Lyra's glowing pattern shifted as she smiled. "Humans can do great." "Yes," Elias agreed. "Together we can." For a long moment they stood in silence, gazing at the stars. It was a simple moment, but it carried the weight of everything they had endured. The fear, the battle, the choices, and the victories. And in that silence, Elias felt something extraordinary. A connection that went beyond words, beyond species, beyond fear. Her smile, the same gentle smile that had first greeted him, shone with quiet certainty. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, trust and courage could lead to triumph. It was a promise that the spark she had placed in humanity would grow into a flame that no empire could extinguish. As days passed, the station became a hub of activity once more. The rail cannon was secured, repairs continued, and the crew trained for any future encounter. Lyra rested, regaining her strength, but her presence remained a source of inspiration. Elias often thought back to that night when she first appeared in his room. The moment she had shed her armor and smiled had seemed mysterious, even impossible. But now he understood the meaning. It was a test of trust, a challenge, and a gift. That smile had changed everything. It had sparked courage in the hearts of humans, united a crew against overwhelming odds, and shown that even the smallest choices could shape the destiny of a species. And as the Horizon Arc drifted silently through the asteroid field, Elias knew one truth above all. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as prey, but as fighters, survivors, and keepers of hope. Lyra looked at him once more, her glowing eyes reflecting the stars. "Future. Yours," she said softly. Elias nodded, his heart full. "Yes, ours," he said. And in that room, in that quiet moment among the stars, her smile shone brighter than any weapon, any star, any battle. It was a smile of hope, of trust, and of the limitless potential of humanity. For the first time, he truly believed it. Humanity's story had only just begun, and with courage, unity, and hope, nothing could stop them.